Hey guys, I'm back, and as you can see, the storm is getting pretty close. We had a little lull in it just a few minutes ago, so it's not too bad out right now. We're only getting gusts of about 50 miles per hour, and thankfully the majority of the storm is going to miss us South and North Carolinians. But for those of you in the path of the storm, I got a couple of little tips for bugging in, especially if you live out in the sticks like I do. The first thing is, if you live off of a well and you don't have a standby generator, well, first off, buy a standby generator and have it installed, but that takes, days, weeks, whatever. So because that's not very common, a better solution is to make sure that you fill up your bathtubs, like all of them, with water. If you only got one, get some spare buckets from the garage or whatever and fill them up as well. And the reason I say that is because in the event of power loss, you no longer have running water. Now, this doesn't mean you can use this all to shower and do whatever, though you can. But what's equally as important is you can activate that siphon, the flushing mechanism on your toilet. You definitely want that, because as bad as it would be if somebody took, 4 leaks in the bathroom and you couldn't flush it, if Uncle Larry has his special curry sauce, you're going to want to flush that stuff down, or the whole house is going to smell like a war zone. But I digress. The important thing here is that and a couple other key items that wouldn't necessarily be covered under FEMA's like emergency evacuation or emergency item checklist. Unlike the bugging out guide where I said, don't go with a weapon mounted light, the opposite is true for bugging in. You're already a target, people already know you're there, right? In that instance, you want to be able to quickly identify and engage any threats. For me, I've got this Streamlight ProTac. It's the 1,000 lumen one with a pressure switch that I've got mounted up here on a very simple loadout, 300 blackout SBR AR with a innovative arm sound suppressor from Silencer Shop. And the reason I chose both that can and this configuration is that it's relatively lightweight. The can does add a lot of weight, it is a steel can, but I got this MRO back here which helps keep the balance a little nicer. This is an MFT, I think it's called like a BIMSIL or BMS mill, whatever the hell. I got it on one of those deal sites, but what I like about it is it's very compact and it's very light, and it's good for those times when you want to just shore up on the rifle and engage targets. Now, realistically, you're not going to be in an Alamo scenario if you're deciding to weather the storm, so to speak, but it's good to have adequate firepower in case that happens. So in addition to having a quality, reliable centerfire rifle, ideally with a sound suppressor, but not necessarily, with a good light on it, you also want to keep at least an additional magazine loaded and ready, because when it's, all hell's breaking loose is not the time to go rummaging through your closet and load a magazine. Some other things that I really like, a grill lighter or pie lighter, depending on what you call it, a little pilot light. It's just basically like an oversized Bic. These are very useful. Make sure you get a new one, or at least fill up an old one, because having the ability to start fires can be tremendously helpful. Some of you go, well, I got matches, I got blah, blah, blah. Well, these things are generally pretty wind resistant if you get a half decent made one. Another thing that a lot of guys don't think about is if you have a grill, right, get a big 4, 5 to 10 gallon cast iron pot, and you can use that to boil any of the water that you stockpiled or put in your bathtub earlier. So you're thinking, why the hell would I want to boil water? I'm not going to disinfect bandages or whatever. It's just what you might need to, but probably not. But more likely, you can cook ramen, you can cook pasta, you can cook oatmeal. And while those aren't like staples of survival, they'll make you feel a lot more at home and a lot safer and a lot happier. And if you're living with other people, like young kids, them getting a hot breakfast in the morning can make all the difference in both their lives and yours. You can't really underestimate the importance of morale, even in like a civilian scenario like this. Another thing that's really useful that I would recommend people get is an all-weather radio, right? Ones that get the weather broadcast are ideal. Any that can use dual power supplies, whether that means like plugging it in, batteries, or cranking, ideally cranking, so you can have, no matter what happens, you can still get it fired up. Because if you have one of those solar-powered ones, they're good in theory, but it also means you have to put it by a light source. And if you're in a bad hurricane, be a lot of cloud coverage and whatnot, and so oftentimes you won't be able to charge it. Now, last but not least, one of the things that I did preemptively, just in case, is I had a large oak tree that was halfway rotted through, taken down in advance of the storm actually hitting, because, well, first off, it was in like direct path to land on the bedroom. And I would really prefer both Kay and my poor little dog Peanut to not get crushed by a 2,000-pound oak tree. But also, I'm not going to leave that up to Mother Nature, and I would highly recommend you have a professional do it, especially if you have a 50-foot tree. I opted not to, not because I thought I could do better myself, but simply because time did not really permit me to seek out a professional. This was back when it was still predicted that a Category 4 would hit us. So I really didn't want that tree to kill me and my family. Kind of a funny thing, right? Get it taken down if you can. And another thing that I would suggest would be if you've got a vehicle in a garage and you think you might need to get out quickly, clear out any debris from your driveway, clear out any debris or any items in your garage, so that if you need to get in or out as fast as possible, you're not sitting there clearing stuff out of the way. In addition to that, if you've got an electronic garage door, like most people do, disengage that chain now so that in the dark you can just throw the lock latch and toss the garage door open, get out. You don't want to be fooling around trying to find the off switch or the disengagement latch in total darkness, or even with like a decent tack light. Now overall, just play it smart. If there's a mandatory evacuation and you live near the water, don't bug in. You're probably going to drown, which from what I understand is pretty unpleasant. Obviously not a good idea. Now, only you can really know your own situation, but if you're unsure, get out. Take anything that you absolutely have to take with you, like important documents, ID, birth certificates, passports. Ideally have a little bit of cash on you, but we went over some of this stuff in the previous video on bugging out. So if you need a refresher course, go there. And then of course, check out FEMA's main website. I believe it's FEMA.org, and they have or FEMA.gov probably, and they have a lot of recommendations for essentials for a emergency survival kit, I think they call it. Regardless, all you guys that are still in the storm's path, please be safe, please be careful, and I'll see you in the next video.